From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
I'm over here on Dover Street, just up the road from the Bayview Library. And what you may not know is that the house in the light tan behind me with the brown trim was the home of a Bayview lake captain that, when he lived here, captained the largest steamship ever built in Milwaukee. Not only that, but he was married to his wife for 52 years, and it was a tremendous love affair that has a surprise ending. I'll put it to you that way. Hope you enjoy the narration coming up. Edward Brownell, a great captain, one of 3 Brownell brothers, actually 4, but 3 that lived in Bayview, possibly the 4th also on Mound Street, but I couldn't confirm it. Another great tradition in Bayview of its 71 lake captains. Don't forget, this presentation is brought to you by the Historic Bayview Lake Captain Society. We're also trying to raise money to put a plaque with all the captains' names on it right across from Sugar Maple Pub on East Lincoln Avenue, where where more captains live than any other street in Bayview. That's all. See you later. Bye. Oh, I forgot. And remember, hats off to our Bayview Lake captains.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview, to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Edward Brownell, who lived for 41 years on Dover Street. Captain Brownell is one of 2 Bayview lake captains confirmed to have been shipwrecked, and one of several that rescued fellow sailors. He certainly had his share of sailing adventures on the lakes. But it is the love story between he and his wife Agnes of 52 years that is his enduring and wonderful legacy. Captain Edward H. Brownell was born in Ontario, Canada, on the 5th of November, 1849. His father was born in Pennsylvania, and his mother in Ireland. They had 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. Edward immigrated to Milwaukee, likely via Detroit, at age 29 in 1878, and became a naturalized citizen of the U.S. on 31st of July, 1889. Edward and 3 brothers would all become lake captains. 2 of them, Joseph and Stephen, were also to settle in Bayview while lake captains. See their bios in other episodes. Another brother and lake captain, David Brownell, lived on Bayview's Mound Street in 1909–10, but is only confirmed as a sailor and not a captain. The author, however, thinks it's highly probable that David, too, was also a Bayview lake captain. David Brownell will be discussed in a future episode titled Honourable Mention. There was even a 5th Brownell brother, William, but unlike the other 4, he did not pursue a maritime career. The Brownell brothers were but one of many sets of brothers that became Bayview lake captains. A future episode on this channel will be devoted to all of these brothers. Edward's whereabouts and occupation from his arrival in Milwaukee in 1878 until 1890, 12 years, are unknown. However, beginning in 1891 and through 1932 until he died, that's 41 years, he would alternate living in 2 houses in Bayview, almost right next to each other, 526 East Dover Street, 1891 to 1903, and then 514 East Dover Street, 1904 to 32, with just a part of 1 year, 1912, at 2870 South Delaware Avenue. While he lived on Dover Street, Edward was captain of 2 different steamships. The Neosho, from probably 1899 to 1903, while living at 526 East Dover Street, and continuing on with the Neosho in 1904, and then adding the steamship Ferdinand Schlesinger from 1905 to 15, both while living at 514 East Dover Street. When launched in 1891, the Ferdinand Schlesinger was the largest craft of her kind ever built in Milwaukee. He is also documented as a crewman aboard the schooner Agnes Smith, although the dates of service, and therefore also where he lived at the time, are unknown. Not a lot of Edward Brownell's sailing adventures as captain are known. However, one incident that happened while he was captain of the Ferdinand Schlesinger is of interest. He had an arrest warrant issued for him by Milwaukee authorities, though officially and legally he was listed on the warrant as Captain John Jones, since they didn't know his name. His offence? He let his ship block traffic on the Grand Avenue Bridge for too long, at 15 minutes. After subsequently departing Milwaukee, he sailed into a huge storm on the lakes just a couple of days later that damaged a lot of the ship. He and his crew were lucky to survive. Somehow, he and the crew patched the ship together and made it back to Milwaukee. As soon as the ship docked, the police marched aboard and promptly arrested the captain. When he appeared in court, the judge set aside the conviction, but not the fine. These 3 ships, then, Neosho, Ferdinand Schlesinger, and Agnes Smith, are the only ones documented for him, though he undoubtedly served aboard and commanded others. His sailing adventures aboard these others are only alluded to very generally in recorded history, their specifics unknown. Edward Brownell married wife Agnes, who was also born in Canada, in 1881. They had 3 sons, Bert, Vivian, and Vernon, and 2 daughters, Margaret and Nora. 2 other children were lost, causes of death unknown, though infant mortality at this time was horrible. For a while, both his mother Ellen and father John both lived with him and Agnes on Dover Street. Edward and Agnes were married for 52 years. Husband and wife were extremely close, or perhaps more accurately, devoted to each other. In 1932, as Edward became ill, and Agnes watched over him at their house at 514 East Dover Street, she then became ill herself, and had to be taken to her son Vivian's house at 3235 South Delaware Avenue to be cared for. Shortly afterwards, Edward died on Friday, 3rd of June, 1932. Captain Brownell had been active in the Milwaukee Shipmasters Association, Milwaukee Lodge No. 6, along with his brothers, the National Temperance Society, and the fundraising committee for the Sisters of Mercy Girls' Home Annual Bazaar for homeless women. Knowing how much they loved each other, the children and family at large didn't want to tell Agnes of Edward's death. After much discussion among themselves, they finally decided to have the family doctor break the news to her the next night, Saturday the 4th of June, while she lay ill at Vivian's house. Immediately upon hearing the news, her condition worsened, and the next day, Sunday the 5th of June, she had to be admitted to the hospital. The day after that, Monday the 6th of June, just 3 days after Edward died, only 1.5 days after being informed of his death, and at the very moment his funeral services were being held for him at Immaculate Conception Church, Agnes died. They died just 3 days apart. It was a true love story of the highest order. Agnes and Edward were buried at the same time and together at Arlington Park Cemetery. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. In addition, this channel and its matching website also plan to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it, as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to donate to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider donating to us through the listings shown next. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. That is the only surviving intact ship once captained by at least 2 and likely 3 different Bayview lake captains. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.